All right, welcome back to our second objective, right? And in this video, we're going to be discussing how to find your location given visual clues. And the idea is this, right? So let's say you're standing somewhere in a city, right? You want to know where you are. And what you have equipped with you is the knowledge from the previous section, right? So you understand kind of the city layout, you understand a bunch of rules of how the city is laid out, but you want to know, where am I, right? So you can look around, of course, and you want to figure that out, right? To a pretty precise degree of accuracy. These are just kind of some techniques that we can figure out where we are, so we're not lost, disorientated, right? So the first sounds a little bit interesting, I guess, and that's kind of using the sun, right? So the idea of using the sun is to understand where all the cardinal directions are, right? So of course there are some sort of seasonal variations, right, of where the sun precisely starts out in the day and then sets in the day, right? But the general idea is the sun moves from east to west, right? Rises in the east, sets in the west. And then therefore at midday, the sun is kind of overhead. So the idea is that if you know the time, you can kind of establish which direction you're facing by trying to find where the sun is in the sky, right? And then once you see the sun, you can and you understand the time, then you can say that, okay, the sun is pointing in, for example, the direction of the west. Therefore, if I am facing towards the sun, then I am also facing west, right? Or something like that. And we can use the never eat soggy waffles acronym to fill in the rest of the directions. So take a look at the image, right? In this image, we see that the sun is in the east, right? Probably sometime in the morning. And so if the person knows that the sun is in the east, then in kind of the anti-clockwise direction, they would therefore be north, right? And then we can fill in using never eat soggy waffles. If we think about moving in a clockwise direction, never eat soggy waffles, right? And so we have a kind of very, very rudimentary compass, right? And the next kind of indication is through addresses and road signs, right? This is perhaps very, very helpful in navigation or just kind of location. So road signs can include a bunch of information. They can include the road name and the intersecting block primarily, right? So if you know both, or kind of, or if you know both the road name and the intersecting block, or just two road names or two intersecting blocks, you can kind of orient yourself. You think about the street layout as a grid, right? If you know two, then you can orient yourself to a point, right? And know where you are on kind of both axes. If you know one, that's still great. You can orient yourself on one of the axes, right? So that decreases the kind of scope of your localization efforts to a smaller range of places. So if you remember the addressing system stuff we talked about, right? If you remember the intersecting street concept, for example, 6 and 645, right? The block number signifies what intersecting street it is. If you remove the kind of trailing zeros, that's kind of the intersecting street number, right? If we look at the image to the left, we see that we are at the intersection of Hollywood Boulevard and Vine Street, right? And if we want to know that in kind of address terms, we are at the intersection of the 1700 block and the 6300 block. And it might also be helpful to note the cardinal directions that are helpfully provided on the street post. So west and north, those will also help to orient us. Address signs function in a similar way, right? If we know the house number or the house number, the road name, we can locate ourselves in a similar way, right? If we know both the house number and the road name, we can localize ourselves on two axes, right? Similar to with road signs. If we know just the house number, then we can localize ourselves on one axis, right? So in the top image, we might figure out based off of number 1055 that we're in the 1000 block, right? 1000. And in the bottom image, we might be in the 5600 block or 56100 block, right? And Willow Street, right? So we know kind of the intersection that we're at. We can also use our previous movements. So our previous movements to understand where we are, right? So if you have an idea of the street layout and we know where we were previously, if we've moved somewhere and then we know where we have moved or the pathway we have moved on, then of course we can figure out our new location, right? So example, right, in our image. Let's say we started at the intersection of South Huntington Street and East 2nd Street. Let's assume that the top is north again. Let's say we walk 1 block east and 1 block north. Right. And now we want to know where we are. Of course, in the image, you'll see that we're at South Clay Street and East 3rd Street. But we could also understand that by understanding, for example, that streets increase in number as they go north, right? So if we moved 1 block north, then we'd go from East 2nd Street to East 3rd Street, right? And then similarly, if we memorized the kind of layout of the north-south streets, and we could say, okay, if we move to the east, then we move from Huntington Street to Clay Street, right? Something like that. We can also deduce direction, right? For example, if we know that we have moved from East 2nd Street to East 3rd Street, right? We know that at some point our displacement was north, right? And with this arrow, we would know that we moved to the northeast, right? If we knew that we started at East 2nd Street and South Huntington Street and moved to South Clay Street and East 3rd Street, if we know kind of the city layout, right? And thus we can infer that north is towards Highway 19, right? Or towards the top of the image as we assumed before. All right, so that's kind of the end of the second objective. And in the next video, we'll be talking about how to navigate without a map. So our last objective. All right, bye-bye.